All right, today on my spooky cool podcast, we are interviewing my friend Reggie, and we are going to have a beautiful walk at Longwood Park in Salem. It's May 2nd, 2026, and this is just going to be a conversation amongst friends. And I hope that whoever's watching, I hope the message gets to who it's supposed to. And Reggie is a light in this world. He is a community leader, he's a coach, he's a father, he's an actor, and today we're going to learn a lot more about him and his story. Thank you, Reggie, so much.
You're welcome.
All right.
I'm excited.
I'm excited too. So we're taking a walk to a cemetery, and Reggie's got a really cool shirt on. He's got a Goonies shirt. And we were like, Soul Tribe. I should have worn my Goonies shirt today. Goon Squad. But we were initially talking, and then I said, let's record this. This is really good stuff. And Reggie was telling me about his childhood. And I guess we should start there. What do you think?
I'd be definitely fine with that. I have no problems with that at all. Okay? I'm a child that, not basically, but I am a child that came from a broken home, basically underprivileged home, drug-infested home, matter of fact. But before then and everything, I moved all over the place. Baltimore, from Baltimore to Norfolk, Newport News in Virginia, Richmond, and then finally settled down into Roanoke around 1987. And around then, that's when a lot of our, situations started to go south. But before then, we were actually good. We came from not a rich family, but we were actually never asked for too much or didn't need too much. We had everything that we needed. Then drugs came in, crack cocaine, alcohol, everything of that nature destroyed our house. And we ended up being, which I was me and 6 of my other siblings. We were left in the house or home for about 4 weeks alone, with no lights, no water, no food, basically everything just for us to survive by ourselves. And the way we survived was we used to sell bottles, gather up bottles. My 2 older siblings would be the ones that would gather them up, and we'd all go down and sell them, and we just would do it like that. We had neighbors that would actually kind of help us out, but the neighbors back then, they just didn't worry about actually getting into our business. So we just dealt with it. But then the last day of school, which was at Garden City Elementary School, my cousin, I still remember my cousin got in trouble, and he goes to the guidance counselor, and they started crying. He started crying. They asked him what was going on, and that's when everything basically came out. It was just like, we had been into the house. We'd been into the house by ourselves for 4 weeks, maybe with no food, no lights, no electricity, no everything. And lo and behold, usually when we get out of school, we would run through the gym to get to our school bus. That was our thing every single day. But the very moment that we ran out, 4 or 5 people, gentlemen and ladies, just stepped in front of us. I don't know how they knew it was us, but they stepped in between all of us so we wouldn't go to the school bus. Kept us in there, and that was the journey of me going to Virginia Baptist Children's Home in Salem right now, where we're at in my hometown, which I was, as a 7-year-old child, the very moment I walked into what they called was a cottage up there. We had lights. I had food sitting on the table already. But then what got me as a child, even at 7 years old, I was so excited. I had my own bed. so, so to me, like that was my turning point right there. I was like, yeah, I don't want to go anywhere. Um, Being up there at that Baptist home, it brought me into society to know and had to grow up really quick. As a 7-year-old, it was 2 months before my 8th birthday. I had to mature real quick. Fend on my own. Within those first, I guess, 2-3 months that I was in there, of course, they sent us to counseling, therapy, everything that you can, make sure to get it off, to suppress everything that we were dealing with. But then what helped me was there was a guy up at the Baptist home named Larry Hicks, and I don't know what he saw in me, as a little 8-year-old child or anything of that nature. He goes, and I still remember the conversation. He goes, "Have you ever played sports before?" I said, "No, I never played sports ever. I don't even like sports." He goes, "Well, I don't care if you like it at all. Uh, Football season has come along. You're gonna play." so in me myself, I'm like, okay. I mean, that's fine. Basically, I felt like I didn't have an ultimatum. But then, what I didn't realize, and I don't think what anybody realized, was that I was a natural. Like, natural in pretty much basketball, football, baseball, soccer. A lot of things that that I avoided as a child, and I don't think I really avoided as a child. I think I just felt like I didn't have the opportunity to do it in the situation that I was in. And then the situation that I actually ended up being in at that Baptist home was everything was right in front of me to succeed, and I took it and thrived. Which the sports was not my only thing that I actually feel like that helped me thrive. It was the people that I met, my friends that I met, my coaches, my friends' parents, even the guidance counselors. Everything up here in my hometown, which that's what I call my hometown, actually led me to. They knew my background. They knew where I came from. They knew what I may have been going through mentally, but at the same time, they looked at me as a child, a child of God mainly. I mean, that's just pretty much how they viewed me as, and that made me comfortable to be exactly who I needed to be and wanted to be. As I kind of moved through everything, from the time that I got here, it was 3rd grade up until, of course, when I graduated. I ended up getting scholarships with that. That to me, as I thought about it when I was growing up, it wasn't as big. But now as I've gotten older, it definitely has, it brought a lot of meaning to everything, and to what I actually, what I accomplished, because a lot of kids up at the home, they may have been up there and they may have done this or that just to kind of get through and get through what they had to do. But
You want to take a seat on the bench?
let's go.
Let's
But
do it.
at the same time, they were who I needed to feel like, I would say, look up for or look out for. I'll put it like that. So I was mainly like a idol kind of to them, because they were basically known as the trouble kids.
Yeah.
And that's what a lot of them were called up there, the trouble kids. But at the same time, I wasn't called that because I was a star in sports. And I would always think like, wow, if you people are calling them the trouble kids, then you're basically calling me a trouble kid. But you're not treating me like a trouble kid. You're treating me like I'm a star. And that right there was the beginning of, I think, in my life where I had to kind of figure out.
Pause.
And I think that's what kind of confused me, not only as a child, but then a teenager at that point, because I feel like that I wasn't treated the same way as what these kids were treated. So that very moment, it made me feel like I was the one that they were looking forward to actually protect. Not only to protect, but actually just make sure that I defended them in any type of nature. And it was one of those where you run into thousands of different kids, especially how many years that I lived up there, because I lived up there for 11 years, and I was one of the longest tenured kids to ever live up there. And I think with myself, I still have those connections up to this day because that was the respect that I kind of had from everyone. And I didn't take that as, I guess, important growing up like I do now, and then I look back on it. Because I still have those connections, and I still have those friendships. I still have them. They're basically like family to me. My actual family, which in essence they are. But I think my road took a complete turn of everything after I left school, because I was in that situation where I always had guidance. I always had someone there that was talking in my ear. I always had someone to be like, look, you can't do this or you can't do that, but then you can have freedom. But then at the same time, I couldn't get in trouble. I couldn't do a lot of that stuff just because I wanted to play sports. I wanted to be that kid that didn't want to be suspended just because of this. Grades were important to me, but I think during that time, I rather had more fun than actually, studied in with my grades. So I did enough just to get through. But then again, I was lucky to get the scholarships that I did. But my turning point came actually when I left there and got out here into the real world. That was when I knew that I still had, people behind me. I still had parents that would be behind me. I had coaches that were behind me. Because I ended up selecting Bluefield College. That was the college that I wanted to go to. But they made me go to Virginia Western Community College, which is a local college around here, to get my GPA up, just to make sure that I was good and I wasn't coming in to get up there just to fail. Well, I think what kind of got me is that I got out here into the real world. And when I got out here into the real world, it was more of, I didn't have nobody behind me, even though I had people behind me, but I had a breath of fresh air where I can do whatever I wanted to do. I didn't have to turn back on someone. I didn't have somebody telling me this, telling me that. Basically, I stuck my foot in the fire. I stuck it in the fire pretty much and got in trouble. And that was mainly my first bout of actually getting in trouble. And pretty much lost scholarships. I wasn't shamed or anything of that nature, but I kind of got looked at differently, I guess, if you put it like that. This is when I was around like 20, 21. And I think the joy of, in between that time too, my son was actually born. So it was like I had to navigate in between there of being a bonehead in society, and then also too being a young parent, which to me, it's 20 is still young, 21 is still young, especially just to have a kid when you're just just out here freshly into society. And you had your goals that you really wanted to do, you had your ambition that you wanted to kind of get through. So what I did do was I made a hard decision. I could go back to school and get everything back into where I was at with my scholarships, all that of that nature, and go back to play basketball, baseball, or I could just man it up and get a job, because I had a child on the way, and I picked the latter part of it. I got a job and started working as a cook, and I think that was my first bout of actually, wanting to cook ever in my life, and it was fun, and I enjoyed that environment of, I guess, chaotic environments of that nature. But then at the same time, when I was enjoying everything, I think a lot of my issues kind of came up with when I was a child because I had the mentorship and everything of that nature. Depression started to come in. That was the big part with me right there when things started to come in. But I didn't realize it. I didn't realize a lot of things that was kind of going on in my mind because I was still trying to get myself correctly or get myself corrected as who I wanted to be and established as who I wanted to be as myself now, not what somebody else wanted me to be. And this had to be, I'll say when I was around like 23, 24. That's really when a lot of my problems started to kind of come in. Anger of having to try to, I guess, handle situations differently or handle situations at a point with where I just started to just flip off the handle. Not only flip off the handle, but I usually would act before I would think or react before I would think. And that really kind of got me to the point where I almost started to not care because I feel like, and I wasn't one of those kids either where, I wasn't one of those kids either where I was like, you know what, I had all of this love growing up, and now I'm in my 20s, so now, I still deserve love in this society. I still deserve love from everybody. People should turn a blind eye because I was always raised to actually deal with your consequences. If you get into trouble or you put yourself in a situation, then you're going to stand in that fire. You're going to deal with that fire, and you're going to figure yourself out or figure it out how to get your own self out of it. And I ended up, I was just in that situation, gained like 3 or 4 charges and just, I think what got it still too, where I feel like, damn, I can't be touched, like I can't be touched because I never would actually get in trouble, like they would just slap me on the hand, slap me on the wrist, whatever it's called. And I could get a job still, go get a job this, go get a job that, and I had some crazy charges on there. So I had that mentality of you need to calm down, but then at the same time, man, you're untouchable. That's what it's like. But at the same time, it was still, look, you have a child out here now. This was the time when my son, his name is Caleb, when he was around 6. I ended up getting into coaching. I just finally was like, you know what? I need to get myself straight. I need to get my things and everything that I need to be straight. I need to get into something that I know that I want to enjoy. That's going to make me feel at ease. It's going to make me feel at home. It's going to be something that I actually can do and want to do. But it's not like I couldn't do anything because my range of skills or talents that I kind of have, I feel like I can pretty much do anything. It doesn't matter what it is. But my bread and butter, as they would call it, is coaching. I feel like if I can guide kids or even guide teenagers or even guide anyone into the point of, it's more than just a sport. It's about life first, and the sport is second. But at the same time, if you can't understand, yourself in general and what you're going through, not only emotionally but mentally, spiritually also, but physically, because you have to understand a lot of that. All 4 can bind together, and make sure all 4 of them. Some of them, even if 1 or 2 of them might bounce off, then you're going to have some problems.
So I've always said 3, mind, body, and spirit. You're saying 4. What are the 4?
It would be physical, emotional, mental, and spiritually.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I mean, I feel like if one of those is off, but see, yours were 3. Yours were 3, so I mean, that right there could be, that's enough. I feel like my own self, just because a lot of that you could say mentally and emotionally can be attached together.
Yeah.
In a sense.
To me, it makes a triangle. But it could make a square or an octagon. There's no rules.
There you go. Exactly. There's no rules of it at all. It's basically however you want to do it. You can even make it a circle.
Absolutely.
So,
And it will, and you will. I've had a lot of circles. If you don't learn it this time, you'll learn it next time.
yeah, exactly.
360.
There you go. So I mean, I got into basketball, which I feel like that was something that I actually wanted to do. You know, I mean, because that was something that I was, and I even got back into playing. You know, and I was playing it and then coaching it. You know, I had my share of, okay, now I'm in my happy place again. That's good. But then it always seemed like that thing would say everything's going good. What's that movie? Blow. I guess that's what that is. You know, every time he said everything was going good, something came up. Something else came up.
We're waiting for that shoe to drop.
There you go.
Yeah.
We're waiting for that shoe to drop. And I think with myself, the shoe dropped again when I was 30. And I got into some stuff that it was mainly just being around the wrong crowd. Once you get around people, which you don't realize, but the underlining of being jealous of someone, envying of someone, hating on someone,
Yeah.
and just completely just being greedy was basically right up under my nose. Even though I'm aware of my surroundings a lot,
Yeah.
but at the same time, I was not aware of the actual jealousy and hating and envying or envious behavior that was around me.
Yeah.
And I got stuck into some situation where I could have went to jail for a long time. Wow, you know, I'm really not afraid to talk about it. A child got hurt, and I was in the vicinity of it, and it was basically thrown kind of back at me because I was in the vicinity of it. So I had to kind of deal with that situation of everything, and that kind of got me into a serious depression, or a bout of depression.
I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, of course, you know, because I mean, I was a child that came from neglect. You know, I was a child that came from abuse mainly. I was a child that came from all of that stuff, and I never wanted to be perfect, but that's something that I never would ever kind of get myself into. But I got myself into because of the crowd that I was around. And not only did that happen, though, I started to get a lot of these dark thoughts. Yeah, there was a lot of dark thoughts because I got thrown into something. And yeah, I got put into situations where I was just like, you know what, like just, you know, forget it. You know, like if you want to, you know, throw me in a situation and you want to put me in these situations and then you run away from the situation, I'm going to come and get you. You know, that was my mindset. You know, like, and I had to be like, I couldn't do it just because, you know, I had already that on my head of they were thinking like, you know, like maybe we should just lock him up. And I think my turning point that saved me was I was playing basketball one day. This was when I was 31. I tore the labrum in my hip. Tore it completely. I couldn't move. I couldn't do anywhere. It was almost like I was being isolated and guided to a situation by that man upstairs, you know, because he knew the demons that were going on inside my head. He knew everything that I had not only thought and was thinking, but it was coming out of my mouth, you know, and it was basically coming out completely where I wasn't thinking again before I actually reacted. And I got injured because I was basically like, you know, he was looking at me. It's like, yeah, you need to calm down before you actually.
He said, sit your butt down somewhere.
Exactly. Exactly. You either get killed out here, and not only get killed out here, but you will end up in jail forever.
And you don't deserve to be in jail, Reggie. You are a light in this world. I mean, there's a lot of people in jail right now that don't deserve to be there. You know? Aren't we lucky?
You know what? And that's true too. You You know, I know a few of them, but then at the same time, you know, I think that was my, you don't need to be, you know,
Yeah.
you don't need to be in there. You're too wise for stuff like that. You're not, and it's like, don't get me wrong, you know, because there's a lot of wise men and women, and also intelligent men and women that are serving in jail and prison and anything of that nature, and I salute them for that, because you know that's a hard situation to deal with. But my turning point was I got injured, and not only did I get injured, I was purposely having to wait. That's how I feel like now. I was purposely had to wait for a whole year just to have my surgery. So that whole time, it was like it was getting on my nerves. You know, I was still trying to work. Not only still trying to work, I was still trying to coach, do everything, you know, that I can at least keep my mind correct as much as I can do, or the limits that I can do with it. And by the time I think that was Christmas Eve of 2013 is when they actually had my surgery. And wow, like it was something that I never had been through ever in my life. I had to not only put on a mask, kind of you know, everything was just stripped from me all of a sudden, and it was taken away from me. My job, not only my job, but I couldn't coach. Not only could I couldn't coach, it was actually taking away things and taking time away from my son. Because I mean, at that time, anyways, you know, like he's got to be a teenager and all of that stuff. So I mean, I'm at the back burner, anyways, kind of, and he's met friends and all of that stuff. But I actually feel alone. You know, I felt alone at that time, and I think it built me into who I am, because I isolated, and I had to isolate my own self during that time too. Also, I had my first surgery in 2013. I'm sorry, and within 6 months of me having that first surgery, going into 2014, I got back up. You know, I felt like I was healthy enough, and got into coaching again. You know, I actually got to coach my son's team this time. You know, and that definitely was, you know, a turning point in my life. You know, because I'm a guy that didn't have his father. My real father passed when I was 11 months old.
Oh, wow.
So I never knew him. You know, I never knew any stories about him. I never even knew what he actually looked like. So for me to actually go in and coach my son, and to be there, not only to coach him, to teach him a game that he loved, but also, you know, teach him the life lessons that I've learned, because that's how I like to teach my kids. I tore my labrum again. So I tore it again, and
The same one?
at the same one.
Oh my goodness.
At the same one. And I heard it just pop. I knew as soon as that happened, that was it.
Yeah.
That was completely it. So I sat down, because I was playing, you know, because I love to intergrade myself, or intertwine myself with my players too. Because I'm going to teach you, if I'm going to teach you everything, I'm going to physically, or even, what's that? What do they say? They have, oh wow. You have visual learners, and then you have, I guess, just learners anyways, I guess, whatever that is.
Yeah, there's so many different ways.
Exactly.
Learning by reading, by hearing, by seeing. I'm a visual. I like to see things as well, so I get it.
So that's how I am with my team. You know, if I'm going to teach you, I'm going to do it. And I just sat down, which I ended up having my other surgery in 2015. So that was another 6 months, close to maybe 8 or 9 months, where I couldn't actually do anything. The depression creeped up again.
Yeah.
It creeped up big time, you know, and I was like, wow, you know, like I know I got injured growing up, you know, playing sports, because of course, you know, you play 4 sports, you're going to get hurt, you're going to get injured, something's going to happen. But this time it was different, you know. I'm older. I was taking care of myself. You know, just everything. I was trying to eat well, but then couldn't do anything. Come to find out, not only did the labrum tear, there was a bone that was inside of my hip that was called the ossification of the bone. It was pulling my hip down to the right, and then it also slipped my L5 and S1 and tore that disc wall in there. So it slipped 2 discs in there. So not only was I dealing with that hip part, I ended up was dealing with a back injury also. But I'm very blessed and grateful that I have my hip. They didn't have to have a replacement hip. They didn't do anything like that. And I contribute that to, there's a Dr. Winston Guapney at UVA. And it was funny when I first went in there and seen him too. It was kind of funny how he does it, because when he came in, I gave him all my x-rays, I gave him everything like that. The first thing he says to me as a doctor, I don't know who in the fuck was taking care of you down there, but they fucked you up. And
God bless UVA.
so I'm like, oh wow, it took me back. But then at the same time, I looked at it, it's like, wow, this is a doctor that that's going to care about me.
And he's going to shoot straight.
There you go.
I love that.
There you go.
And don't talk to me in those fancy terms. Just give me those layman's terms. Your back is fucked up. I'll take it.
Exactly. And that's how I wanted it too. It was like, don't get me around that little bush or anything like that of that nature. Just let me know everything.
No, we will worry too much.
Exactly. And he did not care. He was like, look, they did that, but you know what? I'm going to make sure that everything is good with you.
Wow.
I don't care how long it takes. I'm going to make sure you're good. So I guess without 3 or 4 months of that, I went back up to UVA to have my surgery. It was probably the worst time of my life to recover. He did some stuff in there that I even up until this day, I love that man, because he and I actually spoke with him, I think it was about 3 weeks ago, but he got me walking again, where I didn't feel like I didn't have pain, but then at the same time, I still had to deal with that back. So this goes in between that, 2015, 2016, heading into 2017 is when I had to have my back surgery. So exactly. So in between that, like 2013 to 2017, I did nothing but surgeries. That's it. I tried to go back to work, but then it was like, hell no, you can't do any of that stuff. So between that time, I had 4 surgeries in those 4 years, mainly. And I had to recover. I had to mentally, get myself prepared for a lot of it. Isolation was a big thing that I went through, but then also depression and anxiety. It kicked my butt. Like it was something that I never, wanted to actually think that it actually, was something that I wanted to deal with. But I couldn't help it. It was like, no matter what you can't deal with or what you don't want to deal with, you're just going to have to face it. You're going to have to face it no matter what. Stand 10 toes down. And I think that's for myself. I had to take a bout into the hospital. It was one of those where I had to go in and it was like, look, I can't take it anymore, because it was getting too real for myself. But then I got past that part of it, and I think what got me was that therapist that I had spoken with in that time. She goes, what do you love to do? And myself, I can tell you what I want to do, but I can't tell you what I love to do. So that's the whole thing, and it had me thinking. So then she was like, what did you grow up doing? So I grew up playing sports. I would play 4 sports. I always kept myself busy from 6 a.m. from when school opened to, sometimes 10 o'clock at nighttime. I was busy, running all over the place. And then that even happened too before I even had my surgeries. I would get up at 6, get home around 10 o'clock, just busy all day long. Sometimes 3 jobs and coaching at the same time. She goes, well, why don't you
get back into coaching. She said, does her son play sports? And that just clicked in my head right there. Like, wow, like it was that easy for me to think of it, but I wasn't thinking of it because my mind had gone all over the place. Deal with the surgery, I lost my job, I've done this. Basically isolation, I would talk to friends, but at the same time I wasn't actually like hanging with friends. And I know a lot of people, but then at the same time, it was just me standing out here.
Mm-hmm.
So I went back into coaching. And I think that was the best decision that I did make because I got to coach my son again for 3 more years. From his 9th grade year, actually 4 more years, from his 9th grade year up until he graduated from school. And again, I think it was uplifting to me, because that was something that I never had. At the same time, I didn't have it. I was still dealing with demons that were inside of my back of my head that I didn't want to suppress. I didn't care about suppressing them, but I didn't have no choice but suppressing them. Just because I know I had to stay strong and stand strong for my son, but then at the same time, I've always would tell my son, don't worry about, you don't have to be scared to show emotions as a man. You don't have to be scared to show no type of just anything that you have that's you think that's going to make you feel weak in a sense, because to be a man out here in society, it's already hard anyways. No matter if you're a black man, white man, or whatever it is, it's hard in general to be a man. And sometimes when a man shows weaknesses, sometimes he's actually viewed upon as being weak. But it took me a while to actually learn that. It took me a while too because I've always had to be on my own. I've always had to kind of stand on my own. I've always had to kind of feel like I'm in protected mode. And I think that reverts back to when I was a child, where I didn't have anyone to protect me. I didn't have anyone to actually, give me that guidance or give me that love to actually understand that I'm going to be okay. So as I've gotten older, and then during that time too, and that's the same, knowledge that I like to kind of give my kids, it hit me where if you don't do something about your own self, then there's no way that you're going to be able to help anyone else. There's no way that you're going to be able to actually not only help anyone else, but there's no way that you're going to be able to actually get your voice out there to actually have anybody understand you, because they're just going to look at you in this way of you're just talking. You don't know the experience of anything. You don't know what's actually going on. So why the hell should we listen to you? So I took an inner, I guess what's that inner peace that I had to kind of get. And I think during that time, when I was actually going through all of that stuff, that's when you and I met.
It was great to see that smiling face, that's for sure.
I still remember when we met. That's the thing about that too, because it was, I think when I walked in, I was okay, but I feel relaxed and all of that stuff like that. And I feel like gosh, man, what am I going to do today? What am I going to do? And then I look over and I see you sitting at the table.
Was that mean mugging?
You were mean mugging like it wasn't nothing. And then I was like, wow, like you know what? I'm not even going to mean mug her back. I want to smile at her. I want to smile at her. So I smiled at you. And what surprised me is that little mean mug went off. You started smiling back.
Yeah.
And from that very moment on, we just started talking and kind of clicked, just like that. And I do believe that we all meet each other for a reason. We all run into each other for a reason. We're all sometimes spiritually just brought together for a reason, no matter what. No matter how you try to hide it, no matter how you try to say, oh, no, 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 I wish I never would have met that person. You were meant to meet that person in your life.
Absolutely.
No matter if it's good or bad, miserable, angry, happy, just all of the emotional part of it, you were meant to meet that person. And I think when we met, it kind of took a burden off of both of us, and we didn't really realize that. But it seemed like every time we did go around one another, it was like first thing we would do, we would smile.
Yeah. And they said, you can't sit with him.
That's it. And like you can't sit with him.
I'm like, why? You don't want people to be joyous? I was in there praying for people. You wouldn't believe how many miracles I've seen in that place. It was unbelievable.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. I can't wait to tell you about it. But yeah, it happened. The Gita says that everything happens for a reason, and I believe in that with all my heart. And sometimes, they say what? Life gives you lemons to make lemonade, right? It is what you make it. I've put myself in some weird, situations where I've acted before thinking, and that gets you where you're going. You learn from it. But I also feel that it happens for a reason. I do whatever I do authentically from my heart. Whether it's a good decision or a bad decision, it's the right decision in that moment.
And I think that's what drew me to you. I don't think you even really had to say anything, because I just feel like if it's in my gut,
yeah,
I try to back away. And I don't ever try to judge anyone just because I see them. I at least try to look at the good in everyone.
Yeah, me
but
too.
It's your gut. Your gut doesn't lie. Even anything of it, I call it divine. I guess it's a divine spiritual part of it, or divine intervention kind of thing.
Absolutely.
If something tells you, your gut tells you that you shouldn't go do it, then you shouldn't do it.
And if you do it and your gut told you not to do it, you're going to regret it. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. But you know what? God has given me a spirit of discernment. And so, like what you said, like I see things in people so clearly. And I've seen so many demons of addiction. And I don't really blame the people for it. I feel so horrible for anyone that suffers with addiction, because a lot of it's just coping. They're coping with something. Or they don't have the strength to beat it. So I pray for their overcoming. But I've seen demons of greed in people, and I pray that they overcome that. And I've seen people that Spirit said, don't touch that person. Things like that.
Most definitely. And believe me, I've seen it my own self. If not with friends, family, of course, but definitely friends where I've even lost overdoses or anything of that nature, even from alcohol.
Yeah.
And it's, again, I never tried to judge you just off your look. I don't care to do that. I judge you off your character. I judge you off of how your behavior is and how you actually carry yourself. So that point right there was, like she's cool. Like I mean, she's pretty cool. That's. And then from then we just started kind of going back and forth. We ended up being Facebook friends. And I think during that time too, that's when I was married. So I was like, I got married during it. Well, not got married, but I was married during that time. But I was in the road of separation. So in my mind, I was like, dang, it's kind of confusing with her though. Like, it's kind of confusing with her. Like, why would I even be confused over this? So just because we were great friends. We were great friends, so it's like I wasn't even thinking of anything extra at that moment or anything of that nature either. But it was still confusing because how good we clicked, I guess.
Yeah, you are my brother from another mother. I cannot believe how much our stories are in alignment with our parents and faith and some spirituality stuff. It's pretty cool. So you I put a call out on Facebook saying, hey, I want to get back into podcasting and I need some people to tell their stories. And you were so gung-ho and you're like, let's do this. Let's do this. Where do you want to go? When do you want to do it? I'm ready. And what an incredible friend to like step up to the plate for someone that, you know, we've met. We're friends on Facebook. We have a cool vibe, but you know, you didn't have to do that. So it just speaks it just speaks to your character on how great of a person you are. And I'm so glad that you crossed my path and that you were a smiling face. I had just seen a fight like in my pod, and the nurses came out and corrected the wrong person. And so I went and knocked on the plexiglass and said, hey, you just made a mistake. You corrected the wrong person there. The other one was in the wrong. And I was like, what did I get myself into? You know, I was roomed beside someone that was screaming constantly, nonstop. You know, like it didn't stop, and it was terrible. And I was put in TDO'd against my own accord for some people that was concerned because I was having a spiritual awakening, and I called out some truths, and people don't like that. And
now people do not like when you say the truth. That's the whole thing. Like, people love to hear a lie.
Yes.
That's the whole thing about that.
And I'm not good with lying. I'm a horrible liar.
Oh, like I think it burns my soul. Like even my soul from the inside. They're like, look, you don't lie. You can't lie. You cannot lie. So it's like with myself, it's like I'm always straightforward, no matter what it is. Even if, because I would like that back in return.
Absolutely.
You know, I would like for
tell me the truth, even if it hurts me. Please tell me the truth, because if I find out you're lying, it's going to hurt me so much more later.
It not only hurt me so much more later, it's going to make me look at you and view you differently, not just from, you know, day one,
yes,
but probably even a year or two, whatever afterwards, you know,
or forever.
Like Lord, like, look, you lied to me beforehand, and when you could have just said something simple, the truth. But yeah, people do not like to hear the truth at all. And
no.
It's never stopped me from saying it.
I appreciate that. You are my kind of people. You know, there was a man in the hospital, and he came in a wheelchair, and one leg was amputated. And the other one was horribly black and purple. It was really bad. But we were going to the lunch hall, and I was behind him in line, and I said, can I push you? And he said, sure. So I pushed his wheelchair, and we got our lunch. And then when we came back to counseling after our session, I said, can I pray over you? And he said, I would love that. So I got down on the floor, and I took my socks off my feet, put one of my socks on him. He only had one foot. And gave him the other sock and said, here, this is something for you to remember me by. And he was just a darling, you know. And I got down and I just put my hands on his foot and I prayed over him. And then when we went to the next meal, I look up and guess who comes walking in? And he wasn't walking. He wasn't in the wheelchair anymore. And he said, thank you so much for praying over me. You really took away a lot of the pain. And well, it wasn't me. It was God. That was all God.
There you go.
And what I prayed for was for God's will to be done. And then the next day, they had scheduled him an emergency surgery to have the other leg amputated.
Oh, wow.
So if he had not been there at that time, he wouldn't have gotten those services that he needed. Now, God did all of that. Mm-hmm. I just got to sit with him, share my story, have a nice, cool conversation. He told me one of his spooky, cool stories. And, but I just thought, hey, that's a miracle. You know, the pod they had me in was Max. Yeah. I don't understand that to this day, because I never wanted to hurt myself or anyone else, honestly. But I did read the Bible front to back for the first time while I was there. Mm-hmm. And I was in there with people that had shot other people, people that were in jail for serious crimes,
Yeah.
people that were on hardcore drugs, people that were schizophrenic, people that were, I thought were going to bite me.
You have to worry about that sometimes too. Yeah, you can just bite you just out of the blue. Yeah, so, so yeah. Exactly.
But I made friends with every single one of them.
Uh,
And I de-escalated every fight except for one. And I prayed over all of them. And I really felt like, hey, God put me there for a reason. But just after that one fight where I told them, hey, you made the wrong
Yes.
call there, buddy. And then I'm like, what the fuck did I get myself into? But before that, before they intake me in, they had taken me to Lewis Gale emergency to do a psych evaluation on me, and I was in handcuffs.
Oh wow.
Yeah, crazy. And when I was in the waiting room was full, and there was a kid there in a wheelchair and his parents, and I said, do you mind if I pray over him? They said, sure. And they said, do you mind if we ask while you're in handcuffs? And I said, well, you just can't go and divorce anyone that you want. And they laughed about it. So I prayed over their son, and then they actually called me back sooner because they knew the cop was on a time crunch or whatever, so they got me ahead of everybody else. So as I go through the emergency room, every single room is filled, and then there's the gurneys outside of each room where people are laying out there, and the first lady I get to was a lady who was curled up with her hand on her head. And I said, are you okay? And she said, no, I have pneumonia. I can't walk. I'm very sick.
Oh wow. Yeah.
And I said, can I pray over you? And she said, yeah. So I put my hand down on her hand and I prayed over her. I can't believe the cop wouldn't do it, but I did. I prayed over her and I walked back and I make the decision, okay, I'm going to pray over each person I pass. I'm going to pray over every single one of them.
It's her soul.
Aw, thank you.
He could feel it. That's the whole thing. That's why, because normally, they would not let you go around anyone. It had to be your soul. Like he kind of felt like.
I don't know how they stopped. I don't know how they allowed me to do it. So then about 30 minutes later, guess who I see practically just frolicking up the hallway with a handsome doctor on her arm, smiling and laughing and walking? It was the lady. I said, well, I'll have what she's having.
That's it, yeah.
And then, I don't know how much longer later, I start getting like intense stomach cramps and almost like contractions.
Oh, wow.
And I said, I don't know what's going on. I'm in a lot of pain right now. And then around the corner, a lady in labor walks from around the corner. And I look at the police officer. I said, how would I have known that? There's no way I would have known that. And as soon as I seen her, the feeling subsided. I didn't feel the cramps and the labor pain anymore. But God had put it on me to feel that pain before she walked around the corner.
Actually deal with it in between there.
Yeah.
Passed it off to you.
So I prayed on it.
Yeah.
And they decided to admit me to the mental hospital.
Wow.
And when I was walking out of there, there was no one in the waiting room.
Yeah.
There was no one in the gurneys outside the bed. The rooms were cleared. There was one other kid back there, and he was having a mental problem. And I said, you want to go to the mental hospital? And he was crying. He said, yeah. I said, okay, well, I'll see you over there. He ended up being on my pod.
So not only can you feel it and you can read everything, you're just like, you just bring it all to you.
It was just coming through, and you wouldn't believe
that.
how many people found homes while we were in there. We were able to coordinate stuff for people to work with Blue Ridge to get homes. And I'm like, I'm just witnessing all these miracles after each other. Like, it was just all meant to be.
And wow. Like people sometimes will look at you when you say things like this and everything of that nature. It's like, nah, they're just crazy. Like they're not like
I know.
they're not someone that can feel or to I guess that spiritual part of anything, or they can I want to say it because what do they call that anyways? Oh wow.
I don't know. I think it's just being an empath.
And that's what I want to say more than anything, because and your discernment is there too also. And it's like when you have discernment a lot, you can actually feel, and you're sensitive to a lot of things more, even to ghosts, or even to
Yes.
demon stuff or anything of that nature too. Like not really demon stuff,
Absolutely
but like you can
demon
feel
stuff.
you can feel
Yeah.
the bad before the bad happens. You feel the good before the good happens, but when you know the bad is coming, that's even worse.
Oh, I've had premonition dreams.
I've had them too.
I can't wait to hear about that. I've warned people about things
Yeah.
that I've seen, and it's up to them to take the heed.
Yeah.
But only because Spirit says to do it, and not because I want to see any bad happen to them. It's because I don't want to see any bad happen to anybody. But last year I went to the local Colors Festival before I had another stint. Okay. And I took my kids there, and I was really feeling the Holy Spirit. Like I was, woo. And we were walking through Elmwood Park, and there's a girl there, and she is just screaming at another lady, and her face is totally just blanked out, like she's not there, And she had 2 peace officers on each side of her, one on each side.
Yeah.
And they had their arms crossed with their body cams and everything. And I told my kids, hold on right here, I'll be right back. And I turned around and I said, what's going on? And then she just continued to yell. And she was yelling at her mom, and I just put my hand up and I said to her, get behind me, Satan, and the white light and the Holy Spirit. In the name of Jesus Christ, I rebuke you. And then she just started crying. Like her face changed, and she just started weeping. And she said, I'm so sorry. And she said, can I hug you? And I said, of course. I gave her a hug. I wiped her face, and I said, God forgive her. She knows not what she did. And I said, be good to your mother. And then I'm like, what the heck just happened? You know what I mean? Like, I feel that if I can do it, it's so easy a caveman can do it. So everyone has the ability to call out demons from people when you see it. It's being courageous enough to step outside and actually do it. Like, I can pray for you in my mind, right? But and that will work. I'm sure it will. But I did it in front of, I don't know, hundreds of people were at the park that day. And I know those police officers had to have caught it on camera, but they didn't say anything.
They're not going to. They're not going to say it because I think in their minds, like they just want to, like, is that really real? Like, did he just pray over that person, and then like 10 minutes later, like it actually kind of happened, in that way? Because I think anybody would be like that. But then at the same time, I believe in the power of prayer. I believe in the power of you can push a demon out of somebody if you just put your step or put your foot forward to want to do it. It just coming from my own self, like I've dealt with demons, that in my mind.
Absolutely.
I've dealt with them in my mind.
Evil lives in the heart of man.
There you go.
And also, if we don't put on that suit of armor, then they're ready to attack anything of light. If you're a child of God, oh my goodness, they definitely want your soul so badly. Every temptation, they're going to put it out there for you.
What's that saying? Whatever it goes, or the statement, whatever it goes, as soon as you feel like you're about to get something good or going or whatever, there's always that something that's going to come around that's going to kind of have you question it. If not question it, it's going to make you kind of go through something. So you make it seem like you're just not going to get it. You're just not going to go over to get that job. You're just not going to go over to get, just maybe even that love, or maybe even just anything, just because it's that demon that's just out there that doesn't want to see you happy. But then at the same time, too, with all of that, I've always realized that if you believe in something and you not only just believe in something in general, but believe in yourself, that you know that you're going to do it.
Absolutely.
Ain't nothing going to stop you. No matter
Yeah.
what it is.
You know God lives inside of you.
Mhm.
Now, that was my problem. I had battled depression for my whole life. And the only fear I ever had was not being good enough. Okay. And I was born again in 2015, and I heard the voice of God. And he said to me clearly, love my people.
Yeah.
And then out of my mouth, I say, my cup runneth over. And I'm like, my cup runneth over? What does that mean? So I had to Google it, and I found Psalm 23. And then I went on a journey and got my holy oil and did all the things and found God. But what I found was I had always loved God. I had always loved Jesus. But I didn't love myself.
There you go.
And I didn't realize, hey, the Holy Spirit lives in me. That's a part of the Trinity. That's a part of God. I was neglecting God because I didn't love myself. So now it's like, man, you can't tell me nothing. I love myself so much. I love myself so much because I want to give myself the same grace that I give everyone else. I had never liked my voice. I don't like being on camera. I don't like pictures, things like that. But if I'm afraid of it, I force myself to do it because I can't have anything in this world having a hold of me. And that's not of God, because God is of love, right? God is of truth. God is all the good things.
Yes.
You know? So I fight myself on it. And you're right. The demons live in our own heads if we allow them. That's why we put on our suit of armor.
And I think that too, I like how you kind of said that, but I just think even too, even with myself, coming from where I came from, my motivation in this world every single day to not, even though I deal with the depression too and everything of that nature, was to always look at it like I've always stood 10 toes and walked straight to it.
Yeah.
I never tried to make a right or left. I always wanted to go straight through everything. And that was my motivation to understand that if I got through this part of everything as a child, everything else in my life would be easier or just as easy to get through. And that's just, it's been in my mind, like, don't stop. But I've always had people say, you're not a robot. Like, you're not a robot. You have to calm yourself down. You have to rest. You have to do this. You have to do that. Just to make sure that you can take it all in.
Yeah.
Not only take it all in, but enjoy it sometimes. If not enjoy it sometimes, I guess calculate however you want to do it, so at the end of everything, that you actually put yourself out there.
Yeah.
Whether you fail it or you succeed at it. But if you fail at it, make sure that you have at least another situation or another way that you can go around that situation. So you might fail this part, but you're going to go this part and you're going to get through it that way.
Right.
That's always been on my mind. And plus I always had a coach that, like, gosh, like they never let me get away with anything. And like he never let me get away with anything. And it was like he knew I was good, which all of us were good. I can put it back there. All of us were good. But he knew I was good, but humbled me. I don't care how good you are. I'm going to humble you to make sure you act like you're not no good. And you're going to have to work on everything, every single day, no matter what. And
I love that. We're in competition with no one but ourselves.
If the world actually understood that, I think we would have less jealousy, hate, and not only that, envy of other people and greed.
I don't envy anyone.
Well,
if you got $0 or $1 million, I'm going to treat you the exact same.
I don't care either.
I don't care. It doesn't.
I mean, where I came from, it's like where I came from,
yeah.
and I know part of your story too. It's like, but where I came from, it's like, how can I judge someone when I basically came from, basically nothing, and I've built myself up in this society. If I didn't have nothing, I had to go get it myself. So it's like, to me, I never cared how much money I have or anything of that nature, because the next person could have more.
Mm-hmm.
If the next person has less, then that means that either I could help them, or give them advice on how to actually kind of do something to get themselves up to actually want to go do something better. Because I've never let anything stop me. I mean, and I've never looked at the two. Materialistic things are just that. They're materialistic things. And of course, we need money to actually live in society and everything of that nature. But if you live in this world just off of materialistic things and you just want something every single day that's just going to make you feel happy, or an object makes you feel happy, then I would say 9 times out of 10, you definitely will be disappointed at the end of it. You're definitely going to be disappointed at whatever that you try to do, because then you're going to try to turn back to that materialistic thing to say, look, I got this instead of everything. And it's like, shit, it doesn't matter. You got this, but at the same time, you're using this to cover up your other problems and your issues, and so you're still going through that issue. And I've dealt with it. I deal with it a lot. I got friends that are either rich, mid-class, or poor.
Mm-hmm.
Treat them all the same. And I think that's why when I was at that Baptist home, the kids up there, even though I was popular and everything of that nature, I didn't care. I still looked at myself and viewed myself as an underprivileged child.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't view myself as I was the star of everything. I walked around them and I was the star, even though they looked up to me.
Yeah.
When I walked up there, I was one of them.
Right.
And they respected me more of that. They loved me more of that. So,
Recording
Yes.
yes, we are.
about your life, or
Yes.
Ma'am.
are you?
Yes.
Okay.
How are
You're at the
you?
background of the Salem Museum.
Isn't it beautiful?
It is.
It's a great
Yes.
day.
Yeah.
We want to go to the school, but school wasn't open today. So,
You mean Salem High School, or
yes, ma'am. I actually graduated from there in like
Did
'99.
you?
So yes.
so what's this? Your life?
Yeah, my life and just different stories, I guess, about me, and then too, just even stories too that I've kind of gone through in society, of like even paranormal stuff, or just anything of that nature that we can kind of talk about.
So what's your background?
What's my background? I actually grew up at a group home. I was an underprivileged child.
Okay.
Yeah, so I mean, I was an underprivileged child. I got taken away from my parents when I was 7. So I grew up at the Virginia Baptist Children's Home
Okay.
up here.
I was Salem Baptist Church. I
Really?
grew up in Salem Baptist Church
Yes.
when the orphanage was quite a lot of children there, like
Yes.
300.
Uh-huh.
Do you have YouTube or a smartphone?
Yes. Yes.
Would you like to subscribe to my channel and you can watch Reggie's story there?
Oh, I guess.
Yeah, if you bring out your smartphone, I'll look it up. All right, one moment.